click like last time. Oh, we're live. Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Today is July 3rd, tomorrow being the 4th of July. That's good math. And you're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. As always, you can chat along with us over on our Twitter chat at #CMGR Hangout, where it appears a bunch of you are hanging out right now, so thanks for hanging out with us on this holiday weekend here in the U.S. If you love what you're seeing today and maybe you have an idea or you want to just come hang out with us live, head over to our website at mycmgr.com. You can click on the participate button. There you fill out a form, and Dom, Sherry, and I get that, and it's really you guys that keep this show going. So, all right, let's get down to business. And what do we have for you this week? The topic of today's Hangout is engaging community on a platform. So we've talked about the harmony of social media and community platforms, as well as how to choose a community platform, but we've really never zoomed in on how to engage community on a platform. So that's what we're going to do today. Many of us work on community platforms, have our own tips and tricks, and so with that, I'm just going to hop right into it and let everyone introduce themselves, starting with Sherry. Hey, Sherry.
Hey everyone, I'm Sherry Rohde, and I am the community manager for Magento, which is an open source e-commerce platform. Wow. Okay, not enough caffeine yet today. As well as co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Brew and Dom. Hey Margo.
Hey Margo.
Hey, sorry, I seem to have a little bit of a video lag here.
Oh, it's all good.
I'm Margot. I'm the community manager for Codecademy. We are a free online web app that teaches people how to code. Yeah, we're on a bunch of different community platforms, so I'm excited to get started.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Katie. Oh, you have to take yourself off mute, Katie. We just saw the mouth moving, no audio.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. You might be on permanent mute. Let me see if we can unmute from our side. Help. Yeah, you're like trapped in a mute box. What's going on? All right, Katie, well, we'll come back to you. Hopefully you can figure out how to unmute yourself, or maybe drop in, drop back out. I'm not sure, but hey, Dom, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know if anybody saw when she was in her mute box, she actually mimed, and that made me laugh, so that was pretty awesome. Hey, guys, I'm Dom. I am community manager for Be the Change Revolutions, as well as a co-producer here with Sherry and Brew. I almost said with Sherry and Dom because I'm so used to hearing Brew talk. But yeah, I'm super stoked. This is going to be fun.
And Katie, I see you're unmuted.
Success! You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Awesome. All right. So my name is Katie Bappel. I work as the senior manager of online community strategy and services at Socius, an online community platform. Glad you guys can hear me.
Yeah. And Ari, how are you?
Hey, hi everyone. Well, I'm Ori. I'm the head of platform for Studying on Giants, and my job is to develop our community platform for our community members and our community managers.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brew, the director of Awesome at BTC Revolutions, also co-producer here at my CMGR Hangout with Dom and Sherry. So, well, let's just jump right into things with our first question, which is, what community platform do you use? So would love to hear. Margo, it sounds like you're on a bunch, you said?
Yeah, so you know, there's a difference, I guess, between social media platforms and community platforms. A big community platform that we are using right now is actually Reddit. We are not private, so all is good so far. We're actually working to create a forum with discourse on Codecademy right now that's going to look a bit different from what we already have. So Reddit is kind of subbing in until we get there.
Awesome. How about you, Katie?
So as somebody that works for a platform, I'm inherently tied to using the platform that my customers use, which is Socius, who I work for. So that's the platform I use. Before that, I used an in-house built platform as well that was hybrid.
Yeah, and it's a bit like Katie for me. I used to use different platforms. I've been working in the community management industry for about 12, 13 years, and we used Lithium. I don't know if you know about the software. We used Jive. On a more personal level, I used Bulletin, a forum platform, Invision boards, and at the moment, for the last 3 years, I've been using, in the same as you, Katie, our own bespoke platform. That's what I know so far.
I'll just jump in and share. We use Lithium at Magento. My previous job, we used Vanilla Forums. And before that, at Magento, actually, we used Expression Engine with their forums, but that was way many versions ago.
A little ultimate bulletin board in the house. I think that's the last platform that officially wasn't a social media platform, I think, that I used. How about you, Dom? You got any platform experience?
Not a ton, at least on the like on the professional side. On the personal side, I'm really interested to hear Margot talk a little bit more about Reddit, just because I consider myself a bit of a member there in a couple of communities, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, I tend to use that more on the personal side with some of those. But we've kind of been social media platformed when it comes to my professional community management career, at least.
Yeah, I love Reddit. I'm a huge Reddit fan. I've been on Reddit for years at this point. And I guess I started the Codecademy subreddit. It was actually there before I came to Codecademy. It was started by a community member. And I had found it once I joined with Codecademy and just kind of really took to using the subreddit as a community platform while we built our forums. We included, on the footer of our site, we included a little subreddit button so folks know to go over there and communicate with folks. It acts as a meta. You can ask specific questions about examples. And there's been a really cool kind of semi-moderator movement where folks are unofficial moderators helping each other out, reporting bugs to us directly through the subreddit. So it's been working really well.
Hey, Margot, I have a question for you, and Stephen brought it up on Twitter too, is will everything that's happening with Reddit right now affect you guys using Reddit for a community platform?
I don't think so because so individual subreddits get to choose whether they want to go private or not. We are not going to go private. There's no reason for us to do that. Whatever drama is happening with Reddit right now, it honestly doesn't affect us. We have a great community. No one's being harassed or bullied. Everyone's super helpful, and there's no reason for us to block.
Cool. I was just curious.
Yeah.
So, so the next question has to do with gamification. And by the way, for all the people watching live and hanging out with us on Twitter, feel free to tweet us at the MyCMGR handle. If you have any questions for our panel that you want us to bring in, we'll bring in your tweet and have somebody answer it. So, okay, our second question is, how do you get started setting up gamification elements on your platform? And so, so who does gamification?
Yeah. Go on if Katie, I think I heard Katie, but I can talk a little bit about it. You meant setup as configuring or more setup as developing, by the way?
Yeah, I think oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think when you go and consider doing this, and of course, the effectiveness and how you set it up to be ultimately effective within your community for engagement, it varies depending on who you ask. I think you need to start by asking what ultimately are the top 3 to 5 actions that you want community members to take, and then figure out how do you make it easy for people to be rewarded for that stuff, and how do you make it hard. So you have to have different levels from level 1, 2, 3, and sometimes up depending on how active you have community members, or adjust that over time. So I think it really varies from person to person as far as what motivates your community, what works, maybe what naming conventions really fit the culture of your community to make those people feel like it's a part of something they want to reach. It exercises their expertise, it acknowledges top contributors to make them feel like people are engaged and recognized and belong. So that's just from a standpoint, it's kind of taking all those things in consideration and feeling out, how do we get people really motivated to take the actions that we want them to take, not only in the short term but in the long term. So there's awareness on this, and it's something people will want.
So that's pretty interesting. I'm gonna quick bring in a tweet here that Sherry just brought across my screen, and let's see if we can get it up. Is this black? Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Google. Let's try this. There we go. It's a little bit small, but so Francis asks, question for you guys: what tools or data are the most useful for you when making the choice of your community platform? So when somebody's going about making a choice, what kind of data or tools do you think they should be using, to help them with that choice?
Can I jump in here?
Yeah. Cool.
I used to select vendors for platform as well. So I had a good idea of when we did an RFP, for example. And one of the things was really to look at the analytics, what kind of data we could output of the platform. Because often we tend to look at the features and how it looks or the usability. But at the end of the day, the data for me was the most important. Everything I needed to output had to be there.
Yeah, I'll second that. The analytics are really important. It's really nice with what we're using now with Lithium, how easy it is to pull out the data I need to actually track KPIs and show actual value of the community and improvement as it goes. But along with that, I do think usability is super, super key because if it's a pain for your members to try to stumble around your community, whether it's posting or joining or logging in or anything, any barrier like that is not going to create a good experience, and they're less likely to come back, which obviously creates huge problems.
Yeah, definitely.
I think a place to start before that is to figure out you have the proof of concept as far as talking to those people, figuring out what activities they'd be involved in, what kind of features they would use in a platform, and then make sure when you're going out and looking that those types of tools, features, activities, opportunities are inherent in that type of platform. And of course, there are those that are going to have their strengths on B2B versus B2C versus enterprise versus association. If you're an academic institution, there are a lot of people really getting into community these days, and there are platforms that are going to best suit everybody's needs. So it's making sure you don't get caught up in shiny object syndrome and you're thinking about what the members want to use. So it is easy, so you can get the right behavioral data out of them because they are using it. And another thing that I think is really important for people to consider is asking the vendor how many updates they've made to their platform over the last 12 months, 6 months, to make sure that they're still updating it, that it's something that's going to be progressive over time. So that is a really important consideration. You don't want to sign up for a platform, get into a contract, and then not see any enhancements happen over time to meet your community's needs.
Definitely. The other thing I would add as well is in terms of platform, it's such an important question because it's such a long-term thing. You don't just switch platform every 12 months. It's a 5-year, 10 years time probably. So it's such an important decision you have to make, and sometimes it takes. I mean, I've seen a company decision taking 6 months to 2 years to select a platform.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We're just starting to build our new forum product, and it took a while for us to choose Discourse, particularly because we have really specific needs as a platform that teaches coding. Like we need particular formatting, We need folks to be able to interact with each other in replies and direct messages. We need notifications between our platform and the forum product. So I think that when it comes down to choosing that sort of platform, you really want to think about what is specific about your user needs. What can you get here that you can't get anywhere else? How easy is it for you to build features on top of that platform?
I think one thing that's pretty important too, and I mean it's sort of everybody's been talking about it, but you know the type of asking your actual community what they are looking for, like what they like and dislike as well, like getting like that actual feedback. Like we can look at what you need and all that kind of stuff, and obviously you need to have all of those things, but any sort of a thing you want to make sure that you have a lot of community buy-in, what they're already using, what they like. Because that makes things a whole lot easier for a platform to sort of stick and for them to be happy. So I think that's one of the really important things too. Because if you have that sort of feedback, if you're going and you're sort of talking with a couple of different platforms as to which one you want to go with, and you sort of bring them what your needs and wants and see what they can sort of tailor towards your company, your community, it really puts you as a community manager and as a company in a pretty good, powerful position, I think, to get really exactly what you want. Sort of negotiation style in that.
So we have another question that just came in hot from the Twitters. Kat, thanks for hanging out with us today. Kat asks, if you're a freelancer and on a tight budget, which free platforms do you recommend that provide good analytics? You guys have any good recommendations?
It's a tough one because that's the problem with it's one of the main issue why you got such a difference between what I would call hobbyist platform and enterprise platform is that you don't have the power behind of analytics on free or what I call free software. I would say small license fee as well. They don't, as far as I know, the one I know don't have a strong analytics or none at all, as a matter of fact. So that's a tough question.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't know a lot that are free that give you what I would consider good analytics. I think the only one I've used myself, and I think it's free, is BuddyPress, and you can't get really, it has like the WordPress backend, and it has some of the features that you might want out of a very base level platform, but zero analytics. You don't really know what's happening. It's harder to track. It's harder to come up with strategy, engage. So I wish we had better answers, but it's kind of like you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Vanilla Forums does have an open source free option. If you have a developer, that could be a possibility. There's some basic analytics, and then I'm sure you could really extend those since they are open source. But again, you're going to need an actual developer on your side if you're going to go down that route. Marco, does Reddit? Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. People forget that with open source. Margo, does Reddit have analytics?
It does. The analytics are really weak. So it's like engagement, reach, over time, how many folks sign up, like that sort of stuff. Super, super basic. I would check out Telescope app. I'm not 100. I want to say it's free. I'm not 100% sure, but I would definitely check it out. I'll tweet it right now. It's kind of like a different open source form of a community platform. So I'll tweet it. You guys should check it out.
Nice. And I think, too, it's important to look at, like, when you're asking for good analytics, there's a million things you can measure out there, and we've talked about this on other CMJR Hangouts, but look for what numbers actually matter to you, like what matters are actually important for reporting at your company with your company's business objectives, et cetera, and then look for the platforms that have those, because you may not need super robust analytics. You may need something really simple, and that's okay, but know what you need before you start evaluating anything, really.
And another quick alternative is, I'm not a Google Analytics guru, but I've seen people doing amazing things with it, and there is so many options and so many ways to capture certain data that may be your answer as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if you're on a small budget, quite possibly maybe you're not building a humongous community, right? Because hopefully with a very large community would come some budget, and so possibly, maybe the quantitative data is not as important as maybe some of the qualitative stuff that you can just find and research, and be able to tell stories back to either the client or the C-suite. So, we have another question come in. This is from Catherine. Catherine asks, tips about getting started. I'm at a startup, and the difference between social media management and community management. Woo. All right, might as well talk about this for a minute or two.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that a big part of community management that is not necessarily social media is getting folks to engage with one another, rather getting them to engage with your brand. I think that, there are so many differences there, but for me as a community manager, I'm really trying to get folks to help each other out, get them to interact with one another, build projects together, have events outside of our headquarters, for example, organize their own events around our product and our platform. And that interaction, a lot of the times, takes place off of social media. So I would say that's a big distinction.
I think before you even get started and go down that path, as far as the question as to how to get started, there are some things that you need to ask yourself. First of all, as a startup, do you have the buy-in? Do you have the budget to support it? Do you have the overhead to make sure that somebody can manage this thing? Because managing something on a platform is a lot of work. Managing something in social media is also a lot of work. It's a slightly different role, but a lot of the same engagement tactics that you need to use to some extent. Do you have audience inclinations? Do you know that they'll use it? Are you having those conversations? And can you go somewhere free, like a Facebook, LinkedIn group, something like that, where you can get this proof of concept that it'll actually work? Beyond that, I think once you know that social media, I think I always consider the hub-spoke model, where in the center you have this community that you own, and it's something where you own the data, you can track behaviors a little bit better, you have audience segments that are a little bit more targeted, but you can help promote the things that are happening there and drive member acquisition through these spokes from that hub where you have things happening in the social media atmosphere. But I'm not on the social media side very much, so somebody might have a very different answer than me on that.
I think on the, from my opinion, I think, a social media management, you can apply community management techniques to do very great, social media management, right? I think you hit on the head before when you said it's about getting people to interact, right, and answer each other's questions, meet each other, but I think a lot of the topics, I guess we would talk about it as in community management, also applies when managing a brand social media presence, right? Advocates and problems, and there's a lot of crossover, I think. So I think that's why it often gets really little gray area from a lot of people's understandings.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that when it comes to like community management and social media management, where I see a bit of a difference there is like community management. I feel like the community is really like up at the top. Like you're sort of answering to the community and sort of bringing that, like you're that sort of an advocate. On the other side with social media management, it sort of seems like a little bit more like the brand is like sort of who you're answering to. You're going like activation to activation. Now the good social media managers are the ones that sort of, I think, take a lot of, like what you're saying, Brew, take a lot of that community management skill and bring it to sort of even the playing field there. That's one of the things, I enjoy with, the company I work with, is I feel like that's one of our main focuses to start to do that. But it is a different, it's sort of a different breed there. And if you can create a hybrid, I think that's really, really great, because the power that social media has to be able to enhance communities that are just on their own platforms, whatever platform you're actually using, I think is super powerful. And that's a great non-answer to your question. If you could do everything, go ahead and do everything and be great at it all.
All right, let's jump back to some platform talk. And our third question had to do about events. So I'd love to hear from you guys about, how do you plan events through platforms? Do you just press the event button, create new event, or no?
Yeah, we actually use Meetup to host a lot of our events. We use Meetup for Code Academy meetups where folks will come and code with one another. And then we use Eventbrite for specific speaker events where we get speakers to come in and talk about their different projects. So the two are kind of separate, and I think that's for a good reason. They both kind of have their own purpose. We're actually going to hopefully start using Meetup Pro very soon to do global meetups, which is really exciting.
I think the beauty of using, or at least having this online community platform where either you run events through it or you have some ties, maybe an integration to a third party like Eventbrite or Meetup, or at least some sort of links to that space, is that your online community in itself is its own kind of marketing channel, and it helps with the word of mouth on events. So you not only probably have targeted email where you can reach out to those people, see those people who are going to be very interested in the topic of the event or the geographic area of the event if it's offline, but you can also promote it through some of the other means that you have within that community. So through blogs, or through, if you have forum spaces, talking about it in there and saying, hey, we're talking about this event, what questions do you have in advance, using that platform afterwards and saying, hey, these were some popular questions, we're going to put them in the forum, or you can go continue the conversation on this event afterwards. So here's an exit action where we take you to the platform where you can continue to do so to drive up activity. So there's a lot of different ways to consider your platform when you're doing events. As far as using it to promote, I like making sure people register through the platform. It's a reason for them to go log in and see it and use it, especially if a lot of people are only checking their email and they're not checking your platform every day. So I think that there are a lot of great strengths as far as how you can integrate events into platforms and make that a stronger area for your community.
Yeah, I do. I completely agree, because one of the things, and what I call event, it's maybe more activities on the online community. But when I prepare something, it's more about advertisement in the banners form, or preparing in advance, making sure everybody's aware of the time the event or the activity is going to happen, etc. But instead of talking about what to do, maybe I might just mention something what not to do. And often I see on platforms, even ours as a matter of fact, there is a lot of automation processes. And those automation processes where you can push messages automatically or create things automatically tend to be kind of fired back, because an event never goes according to plans. And if it does, great. But my experience is they don't go as good as they should. And when you get an automated message or automated things happening, it just doesn't work anymore with the context you are, or the time frame you are in your activity. So definitely what not to do, I would say, to automate things.
I think something to add to that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
I think something to add to that is that when you have your own platform, you really get to know the community members based on how they interact with each other, so what their reputation is. You get to see what their knowledge base is, and you kind of get to mine those key contributors so that you can actually use them to host events to help drive participation. Because then you're taking people that are like the people that are going to be wanting to see this event, and you don't have to go out and source somebody that's going to be really expensive to host something, and people are just going to be just as interested because it's the person that they engage with on a regular basis, and they know them, and they know they have a dog, and they know their wife's name, and there's a lot of opportunity there to really source what types of events you can have and who are the people that are doing them.
Have any of you ever hosted an event on your platform, like an AMA or anything of that nature?
We hosted an AMA on the Learn Programming subreddit. So we're trying to kind of get folks who are trying to learn programming but may not know about Codecademy, for example. And so we hosted an AMA there, which I think did actually do better than an AMA that we would have hosted on our platform. It went really well. I personally love AMAs. It helps folks get to know each other, brings folks over to our platform. So I'm a huge advocate of that.
Cool.
Some of the events that I've actually done on a platform, the last in-house community as a product company I worked for, we built our own live chat platform, so we were able to have those kind of conversations within the context of the community. So when something big was happening in the industry, we could start a chat on it and have people attend. We also tried debates just in forum spaces. So we took 2 community members on something that was controversial and said, hey, what's your take on this? Hey, what's your take on this? Shared both the viewpoints to let people debate it out with those 2 individuals within forum spaces. And then also was able to take that content, roll it up, put it in blog articles, put it in files for people to download and reference later.
That sounds pretty cool. All right, I'm going to bring in another question from the community. And Steven, hey man, how are you? Thanks for hanging out with us on Friday. Steven asks, how do you stimulate engagement among community members when it's not happening organically?
I think that, so one thing that we do is we actually have a Codecademy tweet chat that we do every other week, and that helps a lot because we get feedback on our platform from the community, we get feedback on things that we might want to do in the future and how users might feel about that, and we introduce folks to one another, and I'm seeing a lot of interaction between those folks after the tweet chat, so they'll follow one another, they'll have conversations about Codecademy, they'll answer each other's questions, solve each other's problems, and it really encourages engagement there.
This is kind of a basic answer, but I think you need to understand that people aren't going to come into it and automatically be super excited to go do everything and be that standout person. It's not inherent in most people's personalities. So you really need to figure out, okay, I have to drive content like I'm the only person here, even if I'm not. So what am I going to post next week? What are the 5 things that are going to go in this space? How do I make sure I engage this other space? If you have multiple areas in your community for people to participate, if I know that I have a different demographic and maybe 90% of them is using email, but only X% is coming to my platform, how do I communicate with them what's happening via email so that they'll see what's happening in a place that they are checking, so I can drive them back to the platform to engage topics that they'll be interested in? And then how do I directly engage those people? So if you have a platform, you have a certain level of data about people based on what their interests are, what they have talked about in the past. How can I go and directly reach out and prod those people and say, hey, I think you'd be really good at have a really great answer to this question. And if you'd like to participate, if you'd like to start a discussion, if you'd like to write a blog, I'd be happy to send it out via email. So those 2 things come together. I'll highlight you. I'll make you seem like a star. I think also a really helpful thing is to consider what are the different behavioral segments in your platform. So who's brand new? If they are, how do I take that first 30 days to get them to do something? What's an onboarding plan look like? If they posted for the first time, how do I make sure that they post again? How do I get them to contribute again? So it's kind of harassment a little bit. You have to stay on top of things and stalk people a little, but it's a hustle.
I think when it comes to that, I mean, we're all obviously we all want to create that culture of engagement and constant conversation within our community. And I think that one of the things is if you take almost interview tactics, you want to make them feel comfortable. So don't try to hit them with really hard topics off the bat. Throw them a couple of softballs, give them really easy stuff to conversate about. It might not be exactly what you want to talk about, but if you want them to talk about F, you have to ask them A through E to sort of get them there. So even if it's just some dumb stuff, asking them about what's going on with this, or topics that everybody sort of knows about that seem kind of easy. It's like what we do in Twitter chats. I mean, the great Twitter chats, the ones that the first questions are pretty easy, that you don't necessarily need to answer, but it gets people moving and rolling with it. So just sort of creating that momentum for them, so then you can go for those, the hard ones, or you can send a direct email, be like, hey, this is a big topic. We think that you would, have something to say, and you sort of have that lubrication, so that they're used to answering the questions. Then they're much more likely to do it on their own after that.
So I say, hey, where's everybody tweeting from, right? Just let them warm up.
I think it also helps.
We just want you to talk.
I think it also helps, obviously, and this kind of goes without saying, to know your community. So I have no shortage of people asking questions about how to use our product and how to customize it in different ways. But knowing the strengths within those who have more knowledge in our community helps me to connect the right person with the right question and give them the opportunity for thought leadership, as well as helping that newbie get an answer to their question, which is, I think, really important in helping that engagement continue to go. Because the more people come back and see that questions are being answered, the more they're going to be willing to ask their questions and continually check back for other things.
All right, let's jump ourselves into question number 4, which is, how do you set up your platform to make sure you're listening to members? Who wants to tackle that first?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I might mention a small things, but one of the things I do like to follow is, and I'm not talking about Twitter, but more hashtags. So we have a hashtag system exactly the same way as Twitter, where you can simply subscribe to a hashtag and you can follow what's happening. Then when you get a community that is educated to use certain hashtag at certain time, it takes a lot of effort, but you then get a big sense of what's going on. That's the first part. And then you obviously, everybody has those widgets or those tools that they have around the community that is the latest messages or the messages that are being the most active. I assume on Reddit you have the trending, or the I forgot what the name on Reddit is, but you straight away have a very good vision of what's happening really. That's how I judge what's happening.
Yeah, upvoting is really useful on Reddit because we're able to take a pulse of important community issues. They just come right up to the top, and then we're able to answer those questions. I'm actually going to be using user voice on our forums, and so I'm wondering if anyone has experience with user voice, and maybe they want to talk about that and how they get feedback from their community with that product.
Well, I would say, just for somebody who's used user voice, right, in a couple different settings, I mean, what I like about it is it's just like it almost prompts you to, either talk about your problems or needs. And at least for me, when I see that that icon hovering or whatever, it reminds me that there's somebody listening on the other side.
Yeah, we don't have user voice specifically, but we do have a similar feature from Lithium and called an Ideas Exchange. And we're actually mostly currently using that as a way to get feedback for the actual platform itself, for the forum, rather than the product. So that if people want a board opened up in another nationality or language, then they can suggest it there and have people upvote to see how much interest there is in actually creating it before just throwing it out there. And so it's a good way to actually get feedback on how to improve the community. I think we did previously use it for product feedback as well, but that was before my time working there, so I don't have as much, and that was actually on user voice, but I don't personally have experience with it beyond that.
I think that's a great thing, though, that you get with platforms is sometimes you'll get something like an idea tracker, like you mentioned, Sherry, and that way you give people the opportunities to submit their ideas, and other people can say, I think this is a great idea, upvote, downvote, or you can make sure you control it yourself if you don't want people submitting their own ideas, and in some cases, depending on the platform. So that's a really good way to make sure that you're listening to what community members want and what they're liking. Another thing I really like doing, especially if you're starting out with a new community, is creating a founding members council council or a feedback council. I think that still having that direct one-to-one feedback ongoing is important, and making sure that everybody knows there's a channel for that. So if you get people that start from the beginning and kind of go on this journey with you, they can say, they know that they're part of this group where they can openly come to you and say, you know, I really think that I like this, or you can go to them and say, we're thinking about this new enhancement. What do you feel like this would do for you as a community member? Do you have other ideas on how we can make this better? Do you have any critiques on why you think it's a bad idea that we spend our time on this? So that you still have those opportunities where you can directly go and survey those members and get relatively high response rates because they know they're special in that role. Or you can have those one-to-one interviews when you need that kind of information, and that you already have those people built in to go to.
Well, it sounds like we're sort of trailing into our next question, actually, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask it so we can continue this conversation here. But number 5 is, how do you encourage members to share feedback on your platform? So I think, you know, we talked a little bit about listening, and that led into different types of feedback. But you know, are there other ways that you guys are encouraging people to leave feedback?
Yeah, we have a button. We have a report a bug button directly in each exercise, and it has an option for folks to leave direct feedback. So even if there's not a bug, they can say what they feel about the product. That's a really huge way for us to get feedback because we check that every day and we monitor it. I mean, we get hundreds of submits on that button every day. We also ask direct questions. So once a week, we'll ask our community a direct question about a part of our product, and then we will track how folks answer it and which percentages, you know, of folks say what, and that helps us make decisions on how to better our product for our community.
One of the things, and I feel like I say this all the time, is you know, you can really encourage it by storytelling. You know, when you have a problem and you fix that problem, make sure that you are very clear in saying where you heard about the problem from. You know, like, make that a part of your story, saying, hey, community member, you know, XYZ124 submitted this problem and said that they were having an issue with this, and so we made sure to fix it. And then, you know, sandwiched on the end and saying, yeah, we got it done. You know, make sure that you are, you know, saying that you want, you know, what you need to have happen. You know, so that's sort of a feedback. If you're really telling the story that way, it certainly encourages people to say, hey, you know, this doesn't just fall on deaf ears. And even if you do it, take credit for the fact that you did it because of this. It doesn't make you look bad saying, hey, we don't know what our problems are, but it makes, you know, your community look good, and it really encourages that behavior from everybody.
Yeah, I was going to talk about idea exchange as well, but I think we covered this. And the other thing is, if you do ask me anything often, if you ask me anything to a product manager or someone who's involved in decision making of a product or the community, you end up with a lot of questions that are oriented with, actually, there are feedback hidden in the question. So there's a lot of value as well in the Ask Me Anything in terms of getting feedback from the community.
All right. Well, we do have a little bit more time. We have about 15 minutes. We have one question left. So definitely, guys, if you're watching over on Twitter, feel free. We could probably take in one or two more questions. But while we wait for those, I'm going to slide us into the final question. What we have prepared was, what other tips do you have for engaging community on a platform? And so I would love to just kind of hear some of your pro tips and lessons to keep people engaged.
I think that one of the best ways to keep people engaged is just to ask direct questions. We really have had the best success in engaging folks, not only with us, with one another, simply by asking questions about how they feel about certain parts of the product. We're also starting to release challenges, just kind of opportunities for folks to do projects and have fun and be able to communicate with others in a specific area. So around that project, for example, and then other folks get involved, and that has its reach. So I think just giving people opportunities to engage instead of expecting them to engage organically is, a great way to start.
Yeah, I mean, you see that on your even on your Facebook. If you post something on your Facebook and get a few people responding, as soon as you tag people or you mention them, you get a completely different response of engagement. And I'm talking about personal profile here. So in a community, if you have the ability to name people and get them to get a notification or an email because they've been mentioned or quoted, you straight away get such a response that people really feel that they need to take part of this discussion. So definitely driving engagement with this is a massive plus, I think, for a platform.
One tactic that I teach a lot to the people that I work with, just because I think it works with any type of community and any size community, is basically member segmentation strategies. So figuring out in your audience who are the inactive people, who are the lurkers, who are the spectators, who are the people that are, in there doing research, who are the people that are answering questions, starting questions, writing blogs, and then your top contributors. And for each segment, making sure that you have an action plan put into place for how you're going to engage those specific people based on their specific level of activity. And of course, you'll have a higher population of some versus others based on how old your community is or what it's like or how that demographic decides to interact. But that way it really helps you prioritize, okay, I know that these key contributors are really important to me. I'm going to make sure I have some sort of content to engage them or level of contact every X amount of time, and this is what it's going to look like over time. And for these other people, like if somebody posts once, how do I make sure they post again? What's my next step for those people? How do I make sure we do that timely? Because the great thing about platforms is that you have access to the information that'll let you know who those people are. You just really have to put a process in place to help scale that, where you say, okay, this is how often I'm going to run the report to find out who those people are. This is how often I'm going to reach out to them. And this is what that engagement tactic looks like. So I know I'm covered as far as who my community members are and how I get them engaged to the max that they'll go. Because they're not always going to go from like a lurker to like your top contributor, of course. That's something that's very rare unless they've been there for a day and you catch them at the right time. But it just helps you be a little bit more comprehensive, and I think scale and prioritize who you're going to reach out to when based on their value that they add to your community.
Does anyone here work with, do you have like a super user program in place, or even like just something as simple as a volunteer moderator program in place? Maybe that's not simple, that might be the wrong phrase, but it seems a little smaller scale planning versus super users. But I know like that's a really good way to have people who are actively engaged in your community and recognizing them for that, so that there's almost an incentive just in the recognition to continually be there helping people figure stuff out and getting involved with newbies and or even a welcoming squad, things like that. Do any of you have experience with any of that?
So at my last company, we developed an expert program because it was very much the type of community where people were looking to build their personal brands and people weren't recognized as experts. There were a lot of consultants there too, so we know that they were prime time for that kind of deal. And basically, based on their area of expertise, we'd assign them to sort of be the champion of a specific area, and they got the recognition they wanted out of being an expert. We always knew that there'd be new questions in that space for people to have conversations around. There'd always be new content. We knew that everybody would always get an answer when we had an expert in the space to sort of own that area on their own. In exchange, they got recognition because we would help promote them out because we were promoting content, we were promoting the community. So it was easy to make sure that they got recognized in a way that was also meaningful to other members.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you pointed out about promoting them, because the more that you can really elevate what your community is doing, the more they're going to continually elevate what you're doing as well. So being able to, rather than say, look at me, like look at what this person is doing, and it all comes full circle, but it's such a better way to really get the word out and really help make someone's day by showing them that you value them and the time that they're putting in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got 2 more questions just came in over Twitter, so we'll bring those in. First from James. James asked, "What's the default / least frictionless platform for starting a community, please?" Who's got some wise words for James? Plug the products, guys. Let's do it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a bit with Margot here. It might be a bit of a dangerous one, but I do think Reddit is such an easy way to start. And I know that we hear a lot of things about Reddit and how complicated or difficult the interaction with people is. But if it's about maybe depend what's about the community is about. But if it's something that people are, they have a purpose of being in this community, then I do think a subreddit is a really good start. It's such a powerful place as well to start.
Yeah, I think with Reddit, it's really important to kind of, at first at least, manage that community in a way that you are saying, I respond in this way because that is the value, part of the value set of my community. So we value transparency and honest interaction and helpfulness. And so what I do is I try and post on most questions at first in a really helpful way to kind of encourage others to use that same voice. I think that if you're on different subreddits, there are different values and folks interact in a different way, which may not be the most helpful. And so to kind of have your staff tag, for example, and say, post in a way that you want others to post, you're effectively managing it. And then it becomes a safe and happy platform, right? So it may not be the easiest right away, but it is super helpful.
Cool, we're going to bring in another one here. Probably our last question of the day. And that's from Michael. Hey, Michael, thanks for hanging out with us on this 4th of July Eve. If you had no budget, what kind of rewards can you use for gamification? So no budget. Well, rewards. So rewards, huh? Well, if you have no budget, it could be status, right? That's definitely a reward. Status, people like that. Titles, levels.
Leaderboards. Like I think about Meerkat, and one of the things that I think helped Meerkat so much is they didn't give anything away. They just put up a leaderboard, and if you have people that they actually recognize and your name is up there, I was right there with it. Right at the beginning, I was fighting with some of my friends, and I was like, oh man, I have to get above them. And it's just that sort of a thing, having that little bit of status, like what you're saying, it's huge. And I didn't get anything from it, but it still made me want to continuously go on that platform for hours upon hours to try to get up there. So people gold stars go a really long way.
Yeah. I was going to say it probably comes back to one of the first questions we were talking about, but gamification is going to be if there's no budget to do reward as physical reward or a product in the company, those kind of things, then gamification is definitely the key here.
Just to provide an alternative, I completely agree that gamification is number one when you don't have a budget, and that recognition goes a really long way. Some alternatives when I feel like that hasn't been enough with some of the communities I work with, I know that I've set it up where there's been media partnerships, like with people that do events where hey, if you put my logo somewhere, I'll put your logo somewhere, and we get free tickets to give our members because of that. So it costs us nothing, and it's kind of a little bone to throw our top contributors. I know that sometimes Flair, it seems silly, but people love it. And if you have that stuff laying around the office and you can send them a thank you note that has a t-shirt, people love that. They think it's awesome. It's personal touch. It makes them feel like they belong. And I had a third idea, but I lost it, so I'll just stop there.
I also think it's important to note that if gamification is something that interests you and something that you want to implement into your community, go read up on it, because you can't just like activate something for gamification and expect it to work. Like, you need to know the difference between intrinsic rewards and extrinsic rewards and ranks and badges and all kinds of just different things. It's really all about game design. It's not just simply enabling a feature.
All right, do you guys have any, so this is, we have about 6 minutes left. Do you guys have any questions for each other since we're here and just live on the internet? There's Dom. That's kind of crazy. Nobody has any questions?
I do, actually. The first thing I wanted to say is it's quite refreshing as well to hear that when we refer to community platform, we talk about forum-like platforms and not social media. So it's quite refreshing things to hear. The other thing was more a question for Margot maybe, but I know so many people that cannot go on Reddit. They are scared of it. It's just, yeah, it doesn't make sense. It just scary. We don't know where to click. We don't know where to read. It doesn't. The threaded does not make sense anymore. How do you convince people to actually use Reddit?
So we have a forum product right now. It's not the greatest, so we're doing it over. So usually we'll point folks to the forum product first, and then if they're still having trouble, we'll point them over to Reddit. For me, I haven't had folks say, I don't think I've ever had anyone say, I don't want to use this. So I'm lucky in that sense. I think that pointing folks over to our subreddit it's just been really great. I don't know what to say. Like, we haven't had any issues with folks not wanting to use the product or not wanting to ask a question. But yeah, there is that step. Like, you have to make an account and then post your question, right? So, I mean, usually I'll just say, hey, go over to the subreddit and check it out. And if you have other questions where the forum or the subreddit hasn't helped, maybe check out Stack Overflow for help. Or, like, last resort, email support, right? If it's something really specific that the community can't help you with, then email support. But, yeah, I don't know what to say. We haven't had any of that happen yet.
Well, I think your community is kind of a little bit similar to mine, Margot, in the fact that they're developers, or maybe more so aspiring developers or developers learning to get into other areas of code. But Reddit is very developer-friendly, I feel like. Because our community started their own subreddit with Magento as well, and it's very active too. And so I think for that case, it's really simple. Maybe if you're looking for a quick onboarding platform and your community isn't as technical, Facebook groups actually work really well just to get like a quick community started up. I've used them before for beta communities when we were working on getting our forum set up, and I know even CMX has a really good one going for community managers, and if you have the right people and the right guidelines in place and everything, then you can build a pretty strong community on there.
The place I worked at before the job I have now, it was all Facebook communities. I mean, there was two main ones, one of like a core 50 group of people across the country, and then one like 400 people. And I mean, those Facebook groups, they do work really, really well. It's like forum light. It's very user friendly.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we are out of time. Thanks so much for the conversation and your knowledge dropping. Sherry, what do we got going on next week?
Then I learned how to use the mute button. Next week we're talking building communities from scratch. We actually have like 5 panelists already lined up for that, so it should be really great. Tweeted that out already, so go check them out, get to know them, and it'll be fun times.
Excellent, and have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.